excited to kind of bring our experts. We'll have a presentation by Steve and then a kind of a panel Q&A for you folks. So excited to bring our experts for citizen-centered design for this session. So our session is broken up into two. So if you guys have been doing this, you probably know the drill even better than us. We'll have about a 35-minute presentation that Steve will give, kind of talking about the mindset and methodology of citizen-centered design. And then we'll do a panel, so you guys will have an opportunity to make our panel sweat with some questions. So without further ado, we'll let Steve go ahead and start our presentation. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So we now live in a customer-focused economy. Companies that are able to determine what their customers want and then deliver exactly that are wildly successful. Some great examples include Harley-Davidson, Starbucks, and of course, Apple. In recent years, governments are beginning to realize that we need to capitalize upon this customer-centric economy as well, and perhaps adjust how we offer our digital services and online services to consumers also. The role of government is to help people and to serve people, especially those people who are most in need of help. And in this customer-focused economy, it provides us an opportunity to where we can adjust how we offer our services to this changing demographic so that we can help our citizens and serve our constituents more effectively. So on the horizon, off in the distance, we see the destination. We see government being more responsive to the needs of its citizens. We also see government being a little bit more relevant in the way that we offer our digital services and online services. And we also see government adjusting the way that we offer and design our digital services. And so the question is, how do we get to the destination? And we believe the answer is something other than a blank page. Let me try this again. Oh, there we go. We're on track. Citizen-centered design. Maybe just a quick background on me before I dive headfirst into citizen-centered design. Prior to working in government, I worked at Blockbuster and Wells Fargo, which at the time, both companies had two of the strongest brands in the country. At least until Netflix and widespread mortgage fraud shook things up a little bit. But at both companies, I worked in the technology department, and specifically, my role was supporting the marketing team in the marketing of their brands online. And it was there, beginning about 20 years ago, when I was first exposed to the fundamentals of human-centered design, also called citizen-centered design. And then over the past probably 20 years or so, human-centered design / citizen-centered design has evolved into a methodology that's appropriate for all areas, including technology and government. And so maybe with that as a little bit of a background, are we ready to dive in and take a look at citizen-centered design? Okay, let's do it. So first, what is citizen-centered design? Citizen-centered design is when you first focus on the people you're designing for. You spend a lot of time getting to know the people, and then after you understand the people, only then do you begin to focus upon the system that you're building. A couple quick points in a nutshell, kind of go one level deeper. The first theme of citizen-centered design is to have deep empathy with the people that you're building for. We'll talk more about empathy in a little bit, but for now, let's just think of empathy as really putting yourselves in the shoes of another person, really understanding what makes them tick. And second, we generate a lot of ideas. If I were to hold up a $100 bill, wave it around, give everyone a 10-minute deadline, and offer the $100 to the person who came up with the best idea, you probably find that you might struggle to come up with the best idea. Your mind might go blank. You might just stare at the floor trying to think of a great idea. On the other hand, if I were to hold up a $100 bill, give you a 10-minute limit, and offer the $100 to the person who comes up with the most ideas in 10 minutes, you'd probably find that the ideas would come flowing so quickly you wouldn't be able to write them down fast enough. And so that's why in citizen-centered design, we try to come up with a lot of ideas instead of a great idea. And then from all of our ideas, we pick out the best ones. Third, we build a lot of prototypes. We pick out the best ideas. We put together some prototypes. A prototype can range anywhere from maybe some Post-it notes on the wall or a drawing on a marker board, all the way up to functional or semi-functional software. And then fourth, and this is one of the key pieces right here, we share our prototypes with the people that we're building for. And so this does not mean that we share our prototypes with the people within our four walls, with the stakeholders and the SMEs and the people working on the project. Instead, we share our prototypes with actual, real citizens. Maybe we find people on the street. Maybe we recruit people who have nothing to do with the government, but they're the actual real people who would use the software. Those are the people we share our prototypes with. And then lastly, we get feedback. And again, we don't get feedback from our own project team, from our own stakeholders. We get the feedback from those real people. So I'm going to introduce a case study. A hospital had a need for a medical device for nurses to be able to record data during a medical procedure. And so the technology team came in, and they told the technology team, here's what we need. We need an iPad, and we need you to build an app for the iPad for our nurses to use. Well, fortunately, this team used human-centered design, or citizen-centered design. And so I'm going to put this on the back burner for just a moment and keep this in mind as we go through the next few slides, as we learn a little bit more about what citizen-centered design is. And then we'll come back to this to see what that team came up with. So the lens of citizen-centered design. Usually whenever we begin working on a technology project, we look at a couple of things. We look at what is technically feasible and what is viable to the business, or what is viable from a policy perspective. Citizen-centered design adds an additional layer on top of that. Desirability. What do people want? Not what the deputy director wants, not necessarily what we internally want, but what do the actual people who will use the system, what do they want? And of course, the sweet spot that we aim for is the intersection of what is desirable, what is functional, and what is viable. And in addition, the desirability, that is where we start. Maybe one point to note here is that citizen-centered design is not a magic genie in a bottle. We're not here granting wishes to people. That would be not good. But it's as I said, it's the intersection of giving people what they want and what they need in a viable way and in a feasible way. So let's go one step deeper. Citizen-centered design, whenever we think about it, it has two components. The first is the mindset, and the second is a methodology. We found that if you do just the mindset, the results may not be exactly what you want, And similarly, if you do just the methodology, you might not get exactly what you want. But when you put both together, great things can happen. I will give one quick caveat. The mindsets that we'll talk about in the next slide may be a little bit unfamiliar, especially in a technology setting. It's a little bit touchy-feely, so I promise we'll go through it very quickly. Okay, the citizen-centered design mindset. It's the ability to empathize. A little bit different already when we're talking about building technology. Empathy is different than sympathy. Sympathy is a tugging of your heartstrings when you encounter the pain of another person. Empathy, on the other hand, is when you actually feel what another person feels. So for example, if you're at the office and a colleague of yours comes up to you and he's so excited because they just launched their project and it was successful, and you actually feel that excitement with your colleague or your friend, that is empathy, because you're actually feeling the same emotion that the other person feels. So we try to empathize with the people that we're designing for and building for. Second is we listen. Back in the year 2000, I think, I was working in Dallas, and I was setting up and configuring some servers for a business in Dallas. And one of the owners of the company asked if I could install a brand new wireless network in his house. And so I agreed. The name of that business owner was Dr. Phil, Philip McGraw. This was back when he was still on the Oprah Winfrey Show, before he had his own television show. And so I was at his house working late into the evening, and the dinner hour began. So his two sons, who are probably 10 and 12 years old, sat down for dinner, and dinner time started as I was feverishly working away, setting up his home network. If you've ever seen Dr. Phil or heard about him, he is very much a type A personality. He is very comfortable being in charge, telling everyone what to do, very in charge. And so I was really curious, what's this guy really going to be like behind the scenes at the dinner table, considering his type A personality? Well, I was very pleasantly surprised. During the entire dinner time, he barely said a word. And his two sons were just talking nonstop, talking about what they did at school, what they did after school, what they did with their friends. And he listened. The only time he spoke was to ask follow-up questions or to clarify something. So whenever I think about listening, even though it's been 17 years ago, that's what I remember is Dr. Phil listening to his children. And that type of listening mindset, that's what we want to have as we listen to the people that we're building for. The ability to have fun. I warned you, it's a little bit different, a little bit uncommon. If you've ever seen blooper videos of actors or YouTube personalities, whenever they make a mistake, they don't get angry, they don't curse themselves, they don't point the finger at the blame. What do? They make a joke, they go, or they make some funny comment. They stay relaxed. And the reason they do that is because they've learned the secret. That relaxed fun or fun relaxation is the incubator for all kinds of great ideas. And so we try to have a little bit of that as well. Not too much fun, but just enough. Fourth, experimentation. We give ourselves the freedom to experiment, to try new things, and based on the results of our experiment, maybe make some adjustments and experiment again so that whenever we do deliver a final product, it's a good product. We don't find oops problems after it's delivered. Through experimentation, we find our problems before it's delivered. The ability to embrace failure, the ability to fail. One of the mantras of human-centered design or citizen-centered design is to fail early, to fail fast, and fail often. A little bit different, perhaps, from what we're accustomed to. The reason we embrace that is that we want to fail. And sometimes we actually try to fail early in the process, so we can learn from it, make adjustments, so that we don't fail at the very end of the process once the solution is actually delivered in production. And then finally, be curious. This is probably one of the most important things. There's a joke in the scientific community that the greatest scientific discoveries don't begin with the words, "Eureka, I found it." Usually the greatest discoveries begin with the words, "Now wait a minute, that's a little odd." And then the curiosity that follows that. It's almost like pulling the yarn of a sweater. You're curious, you keep pulling, you say, well, what does this lead to? What does that lead to? And that leads us to some of the greatest ideas and best discoveries in human-centered design. I'll share one quick anecdote of a time when citizen-centered design could have been used. I was speaking with a gentleman recently who used to work at the BOE, the Board of Equalization. And several years ago, they were going to build out new functionality on their website for people to pay taxes online. And so the whole goal was to make it easy to use. And by and large, they hit that goal. But the very day that they launched, calls started flooding into the call center. People couldn't figure out what to do. Everyone had the same question. They were asking, what is "ach"? And the service center reps said, excuse me? What is "ach"? Well, it turns out they saw the screen, they saw ACH debit. And so they were asking what "ach" was. So, being good call center reps, they explained, oh, that's automated clearinghouse, which was even more confusing. And so eventually they figured out that if they changed ACH debit to e-check or electronic check, it made sense. So that's just one quick example of how if they had done that learning beforehand, empathizing with the people beforehand, they could have identified that before launch instead of after.